Good afternoon. This is election day. This is a very special day. I've contributed some time today by going to a polling place and spending a couple of hours passing out a sample ballot that is probably less important for a thoughtful voter as to who the candidates are in the presidential race, but more important if you're not exactly certain what the local issues are that you get to vote on, or local candidates where that's the case. So for years, I've been at one or other place to help voters as they come, and I've never had any incident. But the background is the current chair of the Republican Committee. I'm told by members of the Republican Committee, I don't know this firsthand, that he is an extremist, and I saw an instance today at the polling place where I was in Loveisville, Virginia, in Loudoun County, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where I thought it was manifest. Now, by way of background, one of the issues of the campaign has been, what do we do about migrants escaping from places where they have legitimate concerns for their health and safety and life because of where they're leaving, and they're coming to the United States because they hope that they will find peace, release, opportunity. What brought almost everybody who's ever come here? And the country has a flaw. It's like its original sin. It started with slavery. That is to say, it accepted it as part of the deal in order to have a successful revolution. Provisions involving slavery were taken out of the Declaration of Independence. You've either read it, or you've seen movies or heard songs that talk about this fact. And then you have to, be absent from the world to miss the fact that we have never been good with race relations. So that's number one. Number two, we have not done very well by women who stood, if it's possible, in a lesser space of freedom than slaves. And then we have the notion of you had to be wealthy enough to have a right to vote. And our earlier institutions did not reflect so much a republic as they did an autocracy. People presumed, or who were important in their communities, ran this new government, took the risk of being killed for being involved in this revolution, but nonetheless, for how they saw it as a reward or not, they had this bent, if you will. So we early on had the framework of a nation that would be beholden to the rich because they held the reins of power in many respects. And Alexander Hamilton magnified that with the bank that was his dream and that he created and pushed forward and ultimately was compromised, rightly so, by President Jackson. So what does this have to do with today? What it has to do with today is we don't respect those at the borders who are coming here for asylum. We don't make the preparation by way of the buildings or the personnel or where we would hold them or the judges or the investigators that would make this doable. We don't publish in a way that gives notice to who and under what circumstances could be considered to be admitted into the United States. But they are nevertheless used to work, often in agriculture, but not exclusively. And it suits some businesses because they can pay lesser amounts, then they can get labor elsewhere. And there is the notion that Democrats, on the other hand, they may actually have people who will establish themselves and become voters. And the estimates are that there are 11 million people in this hybrid never-never land. Now, my uncle he married my aunt. My uncle from Peru had a marvelous accent. You could tell he was foreign born. He became a citizen by fighting in World War II. So that's my package of concerns, because I loved him dearly, was impressed by him. I was young, but he, with age, just became richer and richer in his wisdoms of life and the experiences he had, including the gross discrimination. So today, thinking this was going to be a somewhat ordinary appearance at the polling place, the Republicans put up a sign, at first on their side of the path where all their material was, that warned people that they had to be a citizen, and if they tried to vote otherwise, they could be imprisoned and kicked out of the country. Now, this document goes to the rules of voting and has no business being considered by the candidates. Yet here was this sign. Then I saw in small print, and I mean tiny print, I can't say if it was 12 or 14 or 16 pica, but it was small, acknowledging the fact that the Republican Party had created this sign, but you couldn't know it looking at the sign itself. Then, when you turned it over, on the other side of the sign was the same message, and it was in, it was only so Hispanics could read it, Spanish. And it struck me that this was a way of chilling and intimidating and coercing persons who were Hispanic or had family or whatever to think twice about voting. And it didn't tell the voter that if they had a question, the right way to handle it was to go in and ask the question. The argument Republicans make for such signs is, you have to have ID. But in Virginia, in these polling places, ID is checked, so it's not an issue. This takes me back to the extremism of the party chair. So they put out this sign, and I said that they shouldn't put it out. And then they put the sign, the Democratic sign, amidst our signs, suggesting that we approved of this position. So I made a little video, a couple of minutes, showing what they had done and saying that this was an outrage when the Republican Party had pretty much expressed a view that if you were non-white, you weren't worth a hill of beans. A phrase we discussed several days ago, I think. And it was sterner than that, of course. And they basically could give me no answer why they would do this, and they wouldn't remove, and they insisted they would leave the sign on the side where Holly and I and others were passing out literature for the Democratic ticket for Kamala Harris and for Tim Walz. So this is the state of affairs. Now, what does this mean? Well, they got all upset that I did it. That is, the Republicans did. Democrats, and particularly those who are Hispanic, support it. So does anybody who's a minority and who feels they've been exposed to this Republican bigotry. And there are people talking about how we... Harris. Right. Somebody shouted Kamala Harris. They have... we have people who are concerned that they're not being treated right and equally, and no equal justice under the law. And some people are suggesting that we be able to work with them. But when it's something as simple as not putting out a sign, how do you think real issues are going to be handled by this Republican Party? Now, I'm not here to change any votes, but I want to reassure you that what I saw today is a very local, tiny manifestation of the monster that has become the Republican Party. The Republican Party did start with Lincoln in the sense of a successful ascendance into the presidency. And they lost their way with Nixon, who saw an opportunity to split the Democrats, the Dixiecrats, by being racist. This says something bad about politics, that the standards of belief and action can change in order to win an election. Now, I won't go through all the things that make this true, but when we win tonight, and I'm assuming we will have to continue the fight. Because for years, at least since 2015, the Republican Party has been tutored in how to get things done by brazen coercion, unpleasant talk, running down people, and apparently intimidating others. Now, I may be cut from different cloth, but my view today was if I didn't have to say or do anything, I wasn't going to. I mean, why can't this be a pleasant occasion? But then I saw this affront, invoking what I know about my uncle, reading what's happening to people, listening to what's happening to people, Hispanic and black and so forth. And then the short interview I had that I taped, that I put up, shows a man who is entirely ignorant of what he's doing. The party told him to do it. Well, welcome to Germany. And he acted as if he didn't understand it. But I've been talking to him moments before in his friendly phase, in which he's explaining where he worked and things like that. So here he is, giving him the benefit of the doubt, the cog in a wheel, permitting an action that would chill and discourage voters from coming because they know the game is tilted against them. The word that no man is above the law is an empty phrase. An empty phrase. Because we see everywhere, from Trump on down, that with force and coercion, you can get what you want. Now, this is the problem nationwide. And I hope to write something about it in the next several days. Sort of like cutting the boil of hate and discrimination that I've observed and putting it down somehow, that America has a long way to go when we win this election. Now, I only mention this because of the possibility that we think that this will move us on when we get rid of Trump. And it will. And we should celebrate that. Of course, we don't know that it's happened yet, and that's another concern. But when it happens, we will have to continue the fight, particularly if they try to take advantage of more lies about what's going on. Now, this small incident that I was involved in, which cuts to who can vote and when, which has become the subject of civil rights cases as long as I can remember, being cognizant of what happens in court and why, and what 42 U.S.C. 1983 meant, which was the Civil Rights Act. And here we are, about to probably relitigate some of that same stuff with or without Trump. So, I'm with you in that I hope and expect today that we're going to have the outcome that is rightly deserved, based on the objective truths And what I will do is I expect that later today, after we know what the vote is, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, 11, 2, whatever time that I can stay up, I'll probably make a sit and talk about the results. So I want to say, you've all been wonderful. Your comments have been as helpful to me as you tell me my comments are to you. I do expect to continue doing this, even should the outcome be glorious and abolish some of the concerns that we have now, because we'll replace them with other concerns that are important to America. And we see when we have something like 40-something% of our population doesn't get it, we have a lot of work ahead of us so that we can make this nation a republic and preserve its freedom and give us what the founders hoped, that they promised that we shall make true. So, for the time being, say goodbye to you from my cathedral of trees. All the best. Bye-bye.